Seeing changes in my home. I started seeing changes with my wife. I started seeing changes approach me and tell me, hey, listen, you need to point. They put it on finances. I look out for your wife when she's hanging out with some lady who's a known drug user, stuff like that, at no charge. And I had to leave the home. My kids were being removed from my home. But God's grace was still there for me. I'm Tony Montalvo, and this is my testimony. Growing up in a Jehovah's Witness home with my other brothers and sisters, we would attend the Kingdom Hall where we would do Bible studies, and we would do Bible studies at home. All of our publications were from the Watchtower. Nothing was allowed from outside, our publications. We would go preaching sometimes. That was part of our weekend or daily responsibilities as Jehovah's Witness. We would go preaching door to door. One day, my father was watching Billy Graham on the TV, and he would sit there and he would ridicule and say, this guy, he's mistreating the Word of God and everything like that. So I was watching and I got intrigued. And what really intrigued me was that Billy Graham was talking about the love of God, and that is by grace that you're saved, and it's not by works. I was about 10 years old at this time, and as the years went by and I got older, I was always look on the TV guide, and I would see when Billy Graham was going to be programming a show, and I would watch it, and it was just because I felt something that I wasn't feeling in the Kingdom Hall, because they never spoke about that love. I kept on, and at the age of 18, I decided I was going to leave home and live my life and do what I wanted to do, which I did. I studied photography. I went to work for a photography studio for many years. At that time, I was freelancing, I was partying, I was meeting people, doing all the things that obviously, it's what I thought was a good life. After a bunch of years, one day I was home. I was an adult at this time, and Billy Graham was on, and I watched it. And that's the day I surrendered my life to Jesus Christ. And soon after that, I started attending Christ Tabernacle, which is today known as Saints Church. By that time I was 27 years old. I was married. I had met my ex-wife. She had 2 children, and we started to have a family. Everything was really nice. Everything was pretty good. We were attending Christ Tab. The kids were part of the the school, and I was in ministry and all that. Everything was just like so good at that point. I was feeling really, really good with life at that point. The job was good and everything like that. Then a couple of years later, I started seeing changes in my home. I started seeing changes with my wife. I started seeing changes of my finances. At one point, I went to my bank and money was taken out of the account, and there was no accountability for it. One day, the bodega owner came up to me and said, hey, listen, your wife's been taking groceries and stuff on credit, and I know that's something you don't do. And I was like, taken back. I was like, okay, that's right, I don't do that. And then I was walking home one day from where I parked my car, and someone approached me and told me, hey, listen, you need to look out for your wife, because she's hanging out with some lady who's a known drug user. And then that's when I came to realize that she was using drugs, and at that point, I addressed it. I came to the church, and I spoke with the pastors, and they helped me. They counseled us. They tried to do. We made arrangements actually for her to go away to the Teen Challenge, where she would go and I would stay with the kids, evidently. And at that point, she refused. We went down and everything. She said she wouldn't do it. And so we came back home and we were dealing with that. I was still working. My kids are in the home. And it just didn't it started to get worse than what I thought it would be. One day, a neighbor called an ACS case against her. They told ACS that she was leaving the home and leaving the children by themselves. Now the kids were young; they were 7, 8, little young kids. They weren't, teenagers or anything at that point. And ACS came into the home. They did a report. They did an investigation. They questioned everything. At that point, they put an order of protection against me, saying that I, for abuse, verbal abuse, financial abuse, stuff like that, and I had to leave the home. Not knowing where I was going, of course, I came to my second home. I came here, Christ Tabernacle, and I explained with my pastors what was happening. I spoke with the pastors, let them know what was happening, and arrangements were made for me to go stay at the YMCA until I found a place for me to, go. A few days later, the director of the YMCA called me down. I met him. He was a member of this church, of Christ Tabernacle, and we talked, we prayed. He encouraged me dearly. He told me, a lot of things that at that point I needed to hear. And he told me I could stay in the YMCA as long as I needed at no charge, which was a complete blessing because I was really struggling with supporting my kids because I had to keep an apartment. I had to keep a job during this time because the kids, I had to have somewhere because the ACS would say, hey, listen, we'll keep the kids because my kids evidently were taken away. So I was able to stay at the YMCA, and then he offered me a job at the YMCA. So I was a porter. I was working, and I was doing messenger work. I had a nice beat-up van, but I was making my money with it. And so I would go park my van across the street from where I was actually living with my family. And as I drove down one day to park my van, I look and I find my ex-wife in handcuffs. And my kids were being removed from my home. My kids were going into foster care. As I went to the cop and said, hey, listen, I'm the father, He says, yeah, there's an order of protection against you. You need to step back 150 feet or we'll arrest you. So that's what I did. I went to the Y. I called. I came to church. There was a prayer meeting. And that's what I had to do. I had to come and call and ask the Lord to give me the strength that I needed at that time because I didn't know what I was going to do. So a month goes by and, we go to family court. Family court tells us, well, she had to go into a rehab program and I had to do anger management. I had to do parenting classes and I needed to do therapy. And all this was part of reunification of the family. So that's what we did. I finished the anger management was not easy because I lived in Brooklyn, but I had to go to Staten Island. I couldn't be late. I couldn't miss one because if I did, I had to start over. It was unbelievable. I found the ways and the means to do it, and I did. They were able to give me some of the children. So I had my 3 younger kids came home. And that was pretty hard because I still had to go to work and I still had to go get them to school and I still had to care for them at this point. So that's when I was really became the single father. And then from there, my kids came home. My ex-wife came home. And for a year, that was okay. But she still had to do an outpatient program while she was home. And then one day, the case manager came out and met with me and told me that my ex-wife had came up positive for drug use again. So I needed to make a decision if I was going to stay with my wife or keep my kids. And that next morning, she had to leave home because I told her. And that's the day I became a single father, and life changed. Life changed. So in 2002, our apartment caught fire. I lost my apartment, and by the grace of God, I was able to find adequate housing for my family and a new job. At that new job, I met a young lady, and we started dating. At that time, I was single for about 8 years with the children, and we moved in together after a while, but that weighed heavy on my heart because I know it wasn't what God wanted. I was still married legally, and so it took 20 years to find my ex-wife. And when I found her, I was able to get her to sign the divorce papers. Once I got the divorce, I was able to get married to my wife, my new wife, and I got married by Pastor Jordan Dosso. What I would like to tell somebody who could be going through this, it's not easy. I did a lot of things. I went through a lot of emotional situations, hardships, difficulties, pain, sorrow, loneliness, all these things. But I can say that today I'm feeling so much better knowing that a lot of those situations are no longer part of my life, and that God has been my strength and my power to get me through this.
Hey, would you help me welcome Tony and Maritza? Come on up. Living miracles, proof of God's grace and mercy. I heard Robin's here. She's an intricate part of the story. Robin, you here? Come on, Robin. I know Tony 37 years. You're like, Jordan, but you look 35. I know, but between the two of you, 12 children. You can't remember. Yeah, but 12 altogether. 12 in total. Grandchildren, 12. 12. Like disciples, these guys. 12 disciples. Yeah. Watch out for that Judas, though. It's the second service. I'm saying what I want. So, real quick, I had the honor of doing their wedding, and whenever I do someone's wedding, I like to get a little backstory of how you met and all that kind of stuff. And so I was talking to them, and It was funny that it was actually 9/11, so tragic day, right? September 11th, 2001. And Tony was on the train with his, at that time, 7 kids. And Robin happened to be on the train too. And Robin was like, oh, that's so nice. Like, you're taking the preschool out for a ride. And he's like, no. He's like, those are my kids. And she's like, whoa, right? I'm ad-libbing here. Anyway, Robin wanted to write a story on Tony. And the story gets back to the office where Marissa happens to work. And, you know, we're singing a song like Mercy that it's I'm alive to tell the story. And then we're singing a song like present, future, you write my story, you hold it all together. And there's this theme of stories, like God's writing our stories. And so this story that just happened to be on a tragic day through just happenstance that they meet on the train, then all of a sudden gets to Marissa, who's working there, and then this story that's about to be written turns into another story that it was being written. This amazing love story, comeback story. I mean, come on. And you think about it, like, we all have stories. We've all been through some stuff. And then, you know, like what we were singing before, Jesus changes everything. Like, he comes in and he intervenes and he changes the story. Like, there's this part of the story that wasn't going so great. Maybe it's all the drama in the beginning. And then all of a sudden, Jesus comes in the story and he starts to write the rest of the story. And the chapters just get better and better because he's the author and the finisher of our faith, right? I'm sure most of you guys got stories. I got a story. Penny, you got a story? Chris, you got a story? Guys, you got stories? Vanessa, you got a story? Sylvia, Kara, Emily, I know you got a story. I heard your story. There's stories all over this room, which is amazing because we don't have to wait for a screen, right, to be displayed for us to tell our stories. We could go out into the world and be telling our story all the time, which we should be, because people need to hear about this Jesus that changes everything. So wherever you are, in school or in the workplace or traveling or whatever, you should be telling your story. You should be telling your story. And I think, God, you've been doing this for thousands of years. When I read this book, there's so many stories where Jesus intervenes, like they were one way and then they met Jesus and now they're another way. And you go, oh, there's the blind man, there's the deaf man, there's the mute man, there's the lame man, the paralyzed guy. You got the official's son and the centurion's servant, and you got the 10 lepers, and you got the guy with the withered hand. And there's just so many stories in the Bible. I think about the woman with the issue of blood. She's bleeding for 12 years. Tried everything, all the doctors, wasted all her money, nothing worked. But she gets to Jesus. Oh, Jesus changes. Lazarus is dead for days. Jesus shows up, calls Lazarus, says, Lazarus, come out. Take off those grave clothes, put on these grace clothes. Stop living like that. Stop living in those old dirty ways. Oh, I got a better way for you. Greatest love story ever told, Jesus, who loves you this much, who died on a cross for your sins. Talk about a comeback story, resurrection. He died and came back to life. And this is what we want to see here at St. Church. Reach people, grow believers. Reach people, grow believers. People that make this decision to follow Jesus. And listen, it doesn't get easy. It doesn't get easier. You got to keep making that decision to follow Jesus. You got to keep making the decision to follow Jesus. I thought about this like in the last service, like as if you have a pen, we all have pens, right? And we're all kind of writing our story. And there comes a moment where you gotta go, Jesus, take the pen. When I write things down, man, it is a mess. You can't even read what I wrote. Oh, but when you're writing my story, man, it is the best story ever written. Why would I want to write my own story? I'll mess it all up. But when I'm like, Jesus, you're the author of, man, write my story. Here's my pen. Take my pen. Hey, go home today. Take a pen. Maybe there's a pen in the back of your seat. Take it. Lift it up. Say, God, would you write my story? I don't want to touch a pen.